Eliminate the workplace excuse. That's what leaders do. This is the Career Blind Spot Podcast. All right, today's CBQ is, who is Superman to you?
Hey guys, my name is Matt Lloyd, Juan's best friend. Coming here because I am a dork who loves comic books.
Nerd.
So what Superman meant to me was growing up to me, Superman was kind of weird because I became aware of Superman when Superman died.
Oh, yeah, 92?
Yeah, 92. I was 10 and I had never paid attention to him before. So the first Superman that came to me was the Bruce Timm Superman, who was real Superman.
The cartoon.
The cartoon on Adventures of Batman, Superman, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to me, he was the man with the moral compass who could stand up to anything. And
yeah, that's growing up.
Mm-hmm.
He was the ideal superhero,
yeah,
maybe, or the perfect,
the
superhero? Prototypical, yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Matt Lloyd, best friend. We'll see about that. No, definitely. We fell in love
over X-Men,
obscure X-Men references back before movies made them cool. I think the first X-Men had come out.
Yeah, the first. I think that we became friends between X2 and X3.
Yeah, this is about 25 years ago. We're working at City of Glendale, and I'm pretty sure you made a very obscure reference of like Nightcrawler, Gambit, like names that I think people know today, but
didn't
at
know
the time.
then.
And so we still read comics, like more so than you, but Matt stays relevant, and we tend to go see the movies together. And your buddy, my buddy too, Chris, shout out to him. But I wanted to take the concept of Superman, the new movie's coming out, which we both are hyped
July
for.
11th.
And Matt already got tickets, otherwise I would forget. But Superman, like Matt, for me, was kind of boring as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I would watch everything. I watched the Lois and Clark, even though I think I was bored, but I was also preteen and
Terry Hatcher.
Yeah, and then I did actually like the cartoon, the Bruce Timm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was very much this iconic, flawless not nerd, but you call yourself a dork, but like he wasn't the cool superhero, Wolverine and even Batman. And so go ahead.
But in my old age, I've begun to appreciate more because to stick to those values he has, I begun to respect him and Captain America more.
Yeah, especially, 9/11, I remember I read a Captain America issue that referenced the tower, and I was like, Captain America is awesome. And he was another one who I think I found very boring at the time. But we're not just nerding out. This is still Career Blind Spot, still leaders.
With a purpose.
And the reason I wanted to, other than ride the marketing wave of Superman, is what can you as a leader aspiring or already or trying to build more leaders learn from this type of, there's a like perfect or ideal, yet Superman is, at least when he does have really interesting stories, and he does have plenty, is often, he got a lot of haters for being this Boy Scout. I don't think we've even said that term yet. So that's the main reason we're listening.
I said it when we were talking before the pod, but I didn't say it when we were recording.
Yeah,
now.
For the audience specifically, who might be like Courtney is not here today. But although Courtney does have an appreciation when I tell her nerdy comic book story arcs, but you have a beef that I share. But what have you not liked about Superman for the last decade?
10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So I don't like the Snyder Superman. He took too many elements from the Wolverine, the Punisher, Batman, and tried to fit them into Superman.
Those are the recent live action
with Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill. No longer.
I appreciate that Henry Cavill is the ideal Superman in appearance, but the character wasn't Superman to me.
Yeah.
Like, to be like everyone, apparently Henry Cavill and Pedro Pascal, it's okay to be openly attracted to them as men for straight men across the board. But to me, Henry Cavill was the perfect Superman in appearance, but the character they wrote for him was not good.
Yeah. When I feel a bit of a hypocrite, but also it's happened when you get older, you change your mind of, I wanted to like the Man of Steel and then all the other movies. Like, he was just so empty, sad, and it was blah. And I think he's a great actor, by the way. But I want, and this is why I'm excited for the new movie, the more hopeful, the more idealistic, kind, patient, and you can speak more to this after I break down. I'm going to give you the audience Superman's DISC and Motivators, or at least my version of them based on the classic one. Like with so much of pop culture, there's so many versions of it. But what was I just saying? Oh, I longed for, especially watching these movies. I was like, I miss like the bright colors. I miss the hope, the almost even the silliness. Like, I grew up on the Christopher Reeves and I found them kind of boring, but I was like, I kind of want more of that. And they did try to do that with, who was the other guy who did him, Superman?
Brian Spainer, with the guy who played the Atom.
Yeah, Brian Singer. They did relaunch it. Singer.
But the guy who plays Superman.
Yeah, unimportant. But he looked like Superman, but that was kind of, we're trying to do it, but again, it still felt kind of empty and hollow. And
they try to make Superman feel like he's a god he is a man from Kansas who has the powers of a god.
Yes, and that's the thing. So with the
maybe because I'm from Omaha originally, I can relate to Superman in that aspect.
The time. Someone said this, I think, on social media 5 years ago, that Hollywood can't make a good Superman movie. What's so hard about an illegal immigrant that's being hunted by a billionaire or some version of that? Because Superman is from the planet Krypton, and he was normal there, kind of scientific, or not kind of, very scientific.
He comes from a family of aristocrats in Krypton.
Yes, and they are arrogant. They destroy the planet, so his parents send them here. And because of our son, he has these superpowers, but he's also raised by good, I don't know if they ever identified as Christian, but I would assume so.
Good, hardworking Christian farmers from Kansas.
And then he, through depending which lore, becomes a reporter in Metropolis, and he's very mild-mannered. But then he, it's really who is the real person? Is it Clark Kent or is it Superman? Or kind of like Batman versus Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's the character.
Is the mask.
Batman is the psychopathic real person who's the billionaire who doesn't help with the social programs, but instead beats up mentally ill patients, as people like to call out. And this, one of the great things of the story is that they have to evolve if they're going to resonate with people. But with Superman, let's just break down the classic one. My favorite, at least in not comics, is I think it's 1940s cartoons. Very sci-fi, when he's like punching lasers and robots. That Superman, the character in terms of DISC, is steady, which is someone who's patient and consistent. He's not over talking. He's very kind, very amiable with others, but also influential. Not high I or highly talkative, but he's optimistic. He likes meeting new people, new cultures. So that's his DISC style, according to me. I could hear an argument for being more assertive or compliant, but the character that I'm looking forward to this summer is what I just described, or at least according to the trailers. And also, I think why Matt and I, and a lot of people, I think most people, didn't like the Snyder version. Whereas his motivators, what motivates Superman, at least the one we love or the one we knew, is he wants to help people. He is socially motivated. But also
specifically children, too.
Yeah,
he loves helping kids and protecting them from the scary world.
And he's also what I would consider traditional, especially the old moniker, truth, justice, and the American way, which, depending on politics, has adjusted. But he's very much he wants to live his life the right way. And that goes back more towards the upbringing of Ma and Pa Kent, which one of my favorite alternate ones, which this is before it got excessive, was the Elseworlds of Red Sun. It's where Superman,
I didn't enjoy that. I know you did. Superman, you gave it to me. I read it, but I didn't love it.
I don't read it. I read it. This is back when Apple iPhone. I downloaded it as it's not a cartoon. It's the comic, but like a motion comic. I was like, whoa, this is the future. But it's basically Superman as a baby, instead of landing in Kansas, lands in Russia. And he becomes a super soldier in the World War II era. And I won't give away the ending, but that was back when you take this prototype and you really adapt it to a different world. But the classic is he's raised by these certain values, dare I say conservative values. So social, I want to help people. I want to do things the right way. And then theoretical, which I don't think mainstream really saw it, but I liked it, especially with the cartoon. He had like his museum in his Fortress of Solitude. The guy likes learning about other planets and cultures, kind of like in a Star Trek way, though, if I don't want to interfere, as opposed to his villain Brainiac that is trying to assimilate everyone. So like that to me is the classic Superman. Any surprise, or I know you don't know this stuff inside and out, but it makes sense to you?
Yeah, from what you've shown me on DISC, that basically fits Superman.
And so he is this Boy Scout. That's another, like, if you've not heard of Superman, you've probably heard of Boy Scouts. They follow the rules. They help people. They wear their underwear outside their pants. And, he's a nice person. So these other movies and versions, I wouldn't even say they're all bad, but they're not Superman.
Like, we can learn from Omni-Man. And we can learn from
let's listen.
Homelander
by Matt. Is that these are basically characters that have been like the rated R sometimes evil version.
Mhm.
There's Homelander, who's very much a bad person. Omni-Man, which is, I think, Invincible.
Yeah, it's Invincible's dad.
Yeah, and that I'm in the middle of. I won't spoil. But
He's
there's
like
all
Krypton if Kryptonians and Krypton didn't explode.
there, and the reason, which again Matt said it, but like I like to liken it to a CEO or the person in charge. There's these caricatures that, hey, we're a family, and all hot, was it rising tides lift all boats, and a lot of other stuff that Reagan said that isn't necessarily done. It's one thing to say, I believe in X, Y, and Z, be it your faith or your mission, vision, values. Another thing to actually do it and not do it. And so you have all these derivatives of Superman that are basically just bad because they can be, because no one's really going to
like the
stop
Dark
them.
Knight, Alan Moore, evil government agent Superman who
Yeah.
fights the old man Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
There's all different versions where he gives up some of his values to the system.
Yeah.
Because the system can't hurt him, but he can hurt others in the,
Yeah,
in the system.
and now I think it's a big part of this is we're adults. And so especially we're adults who work, we hide from politics, we engage, we vote, we whatever. We want more of a leader that is a good person, is and not just politically, but in the workplace. And I wouldn't say most people are bad. I don't say that, but I also think people are going to operate in their self-interest. And when you have power, it's easy to say those people should use their power or their money, which kind of one and the same. But it's like, if I was a billionaire, I'd probably think differently. Otherwise, and therefore that's why I'm not a billionaire. So Superman is this allegory to, as a leader yourself, if you're listening, when are you criticized for living by your ideals? You gonna say something?
So one of my work nicknames is Matt Lasso.
Yeah.
And to me, Ted Lasso is kind of like Superman without the superpowers.
Yeah.
That's what me and Reese call him on the podcast.
Yeah.
He's Superman in everyday life. He's always trying to help other people and do all these values. And I think that's why you and me resonate so much with Ted Lasso season 1.
Yeah. I mean, for those who haven't seen, I'm pretty popular, but basically Ted Lasso is Ned Flanders, another pop culture, but very happy, positive to a fault.
Yeah.
You learn that later in the seasons.
Why, which is very sad.
But he's a motivational speaker, coach, very kind, but also effective. And he's a football American coach.
But gets involved in people on a granular level and tries to raise them to their best selves.
And especially in an era of what was the Breaking Bad and what's the other mob show that was big? Sopranos, and
in the era of Tony Soprano and Walter White, sometimes you need a Ted Lasso.
And like we have a lot of Red Wedding, Game of Thrones, and just dark stuff, which it's great entertainment, but after a while, like it's depressing. And Ted Lasso was this real beacon in the pandemic time, and I think it's coming back too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's with this new reboot of Superman. The trailer is very hopeful, and dare I say even, I don't know, silly is the right word, but like his dog, Crypto. Yeah. They've never had his dog before.
There's two elements I loved about the trailer. We haven't seen the movie yet, but Crypto brings that kind of silliness to the 1960s and 70s Superman to it. And I loved his conversation with Lois, where Lois is taking the stance of the government.
Yeah.
Because Superman, we don't know what he does, but he interferes in some sort of action between two governments.
Yeah.
And the U.S. government isn't happy with him because of it. He's like, but people were going to die, and I had the power to stop it. And I think we need a little bit more of that in this world, especially where we're at right now.
Yeah. Well, and it is, I remember watching, I can't remember exactly which Superman show, but my dad, I think it was the Lois and Clark one with Dean Cain. But he was, in the show, that Superman was getting, it sounds so crazy back then, but everyone in the news hated him, and they were blaming him for everything. Like, I think global warming and all this stuff. And my dad's like, you know what? That's funny, because I think that's real. If you really had a Superman, everything that went wrong with the world would somehow go back to him. And yet he is kind of like at the Avengers movie, where they're not government officials, and should they be, and all these there's these complicated nerdy things that's what makes it fun to read. But the point of this podcast is like, look, you do have power. You might not be Superman, but especially when you live up to your values, you're gonna have haters. Even your own friends are going to go again. That's the beauty of the world's finest Batman and Superman. Basically, yin and yang, not even yin and yang, complete opposites, and yet that dynamic is what makes it interesting. But as an entertainment, what's interesting in fiction is really awkward, and we tend to avoid in real life. And so Superman was this Boy Scout They made him NC-17 in some frames just to keep things interesting, and I get that. But this character, going back to his original roots of truth, justice, the American way, he's fought in the comic books, Muhammad Ali, Spider-Man, KKK. Matt, remind me of that. There's all these things. A lot of people aren't going to like that. Hell, us as fans, we didn't like it. Matt, it took him dying for Matt to really learn about who he was. I actually have that issue still unwrapped.
Me too. And I think every nerd in America does.
Yeah, that's why comic books are not worth anything. Yeah. Any other thoughts on? I mean, we could talk about many things, but in the context of leadership and work.
So 2 things in the context of leadership. Actually, they're going to branch off each other. Superman ultimately doesn't need the Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's look at the characters individually. He's as fast or equal to the Flash. I mean, the Flash is a little bit faster than him, but it's like incremental.
Yeah.
He can do everything Batman can do, except for his money.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman, he can go toe-to-toe with Wonder Woman. The only ones that, like Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, the only ones that bring kind of something to the table.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a Justice League of 3 people, but he chooses to lead these people because having the most people can do the most good.
Yeah.
And they all bring something to the table. Batman brings his resources. Wonder Woman brings her army of Amazons, like Thor when they need the Asgardians. Everyone kind of brings their thing. Green Arrow brings his hippie, like, kind of countercultural to Superman in the form in some comics where Superman is conservative and Green Arrow, is like super liberal. He understands the value of multiple ideas, and he doesn't need these people, but he wants them there.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is a good leader.
It's the irony of, like, Superman is the UN ultimate diplomat and ultimate nuclear weapon personified, who really doesn't want to have to do any of this stuff, but will. And, I mean, it really is I mean, we didn't even get into I said it, and I saw your face, but then I kept talking, but Zack Snyder really made him this libertarian Jesus and really stripped. I'm not saying that version isn't interesting, although I think the version he made is not interesting, but that's not Clark Kent Superman that we grew up on, of you let people die and you kill people. Like, that is not the character. It'd be like turning his S to an F. Like, okay, that's interesting, but it's not. It's Superman.
It's Superman. Now, fuck you, man.
Yeah. But and so here's where we'll end. And again, did you have? Yeah. Oh no, you said
the second point was socioeconomically, he is actually one of the least socioeconomic people in the Justice League. Mm-hmm. He's equal to Green Lantern or the Flash. When you
talk about his salary,
yeah, how you're literally dealing with Wonder Woman, who's the queen or princess of the Amazons.
Yeah.
She's basically Wakanda in their universe.
Yeah.
And then you have Arthur Curry, another guy who's the king who has unlimited resources.
Aquaman,
Bruce Wayne,
talks with the
unlimited resources. And you have a reporter who probably makes $75,000 a year who's leading these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and he's AOC. No. But,
yeah.
So here's what we'll conclude. We got a little political here, but that's going to be really interesting with this movie, and maybe we'll come back and we're sad because it was a disappointment, or we're motivated, or something. But in the meantime, one more thing.
The other thing I liked is in an interview, what's this, the guy who created it, the director? I'm forgetting his name right now. He did Guardians of the Galaxy. James Gunn said that his take on Lex Luthor views Superman like an artist views AI.
Yeah.
But
that Lex Luthor, we haven't talked about the villain, but he's always been portrayed as a rich guy who's greedy, but also I think where he's gotten really better is a human, not just an American, but a human who is like, hey, this alien is trying to tell us what to do. No, I want my freedom. So very much like there's these, this is what makes the stories really good. When they are good, because most of the comics are just silly and fun. But
I know you said 20 minutes. And
we're going to land the ship perfectly. In the meantime, what you can do as a call to action is reflect on what your haters do say or would say about you when you live your values. And if you're listening to this, you probably are getting better at that, or at least you want to, but you are going to have haters. Maybe not loud, but if you don't do your values, there's going to be one hater, and that's yourself. Mm-hmm. So, dun, 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 dun. We'll see you for the next one. I make this show for leaders, those who don't point fingers, but point towards